Imagine a profound truth. Psalm 91 wasn't penned for those already secure, but specifically for the fearful. Indeed, this ancient psalm has been clutched by trembling hands in the sterile urgency of emergency rooms, softly whispered into the profound silence of sleepless nights, and clung to like an ultimate lifeline by souls watching their very world crumble beneath them. Its very pages have been worn thin in countless Bibles, testifying to the enduring faith of those who have journeyed through fiery trials and emerged, not unscathed, but with stories of survival. Perhaps, by the time we conclude this exploration, you'll deeply recognize that this psalm was indeed written with you in mind. And should you ever feel utterly forgotten, you will come to understand, through Psalm 91, why you are eternally remembered. Psalm 91 stands as a cornerstone of hope, one of the most frequently quoted promises found within the entire Bible. Yet, could it be that we've inadvertently overlooked its deepest, most profound meaning? From its very first, iconic line, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty," we encounter words that millions have faithfully repeated, seeking solace and strength. However, beneath that immediate sense of comfort lies a truth far more profound and, indeed, far more demanding. For the shadow of the Almighty is not merely a poetic turn of phrase. It represents a distinct place, a tangible spiritual reality. And critically, not everyone inhabits this sacred space. This divine promise is not automatic. It is inherently conditional. This isn't a psalm to be treated as a mere incantation, spoken once for instant safety. Instead, it embodies a profound covenant of presence, meticulously forged through deep intimacy, complete surrender, and the unwavering decision to remain close, even, especially, when every facet of your life seems to be collapsing around you. And here, perhaps, is where its message becomes truly challenging. To stand within God's shadow implies a proximity so profound that you are close enough to perceive what He perceives, to feel the very depths of His heart, and to trust Him implicitly even when all familiar light vanishes, plunging you into raw vulnerability. Psalm 91, then, is not about miraculously avoiding every storm or escaping tribulation entirely. Rather, it's about enduring and surviving it with an ever-present companion by your side. In a world increasingly obsessed with superficial comfort, this psalm issues a powerful summons, urging us back to authentic communion. In an age where fear is pervasively broadcast and lasting peace often feels like an unattainable fantasy, Psalm 91 makes an audacious, almost revolutionary declaration. God's protection is profoundly real, yet its manifestation might not always align with our preconceived notions. True protection, you see, isn't always the absence of fire. Sometimes, it means the fire arrives, yet you remain unburnt, emerging from the flames unharmed. Just when we presume to fully grasp the meaning of safety, this psalm masterfully reorients our entire understanding. There's a deliberate reason why it speaks so frankly of hidden traps and flying arrows, of nightly terrors and noonday destruction. It doesn't gloss over or deny our fears. It explicitly names them, confronts them head-on, and then points us to a haven infinitely stronger than any fear. A spiritual sanctuary so intimately close to God that even the encroaching darkness is compelled to yield before His radiant light. This is emphatically not a psalm for those whose foundations feel utterly unshaken. Rather, it is profoundly for the trembling heart, for the soul clinging desperately, for the believer who, amidst their deepest fears, can still bravely declare, "I'm afraid, but I'm still here." Welcome, then, to the transformative shadow of the Almighty. The reiteration of that seminal opening line, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty," reveals it to be more than merely beautiful. It is profoundly incisive, piercing directly to the core of what it genuinely signifies to live under God's divine protection. Not everyone is granted the privilege to claim this promise. It is not a universal entitlement. Indeed, The promise itself commences with a vital condition: he who dwells, not merely he who visits, nor he who conveniently recalls God in moments of ease or desperation. The operative word is dwell. It means to live, to remain, to consistently stay. True divine protection, therefore, is not merely initiated by proximity, but fundamentally sustained by permanence. And here lies a challenging truth. Many of us do not truly dwell. Instead, we tend to dip in and out of God's sacred presence as if it were a spiritual convenience store, showing up on some. It is, fundamentally, a posture of the heart. It embodies precisely what Jesus intended when he urged us, "Abide in me, and I in you." It is that profound stillness found even amidst the chaos of war, the unexplainable peace that defies all logic, the unshakable inner core that remains steadfast even as everything else around us disintegrates. And if you have ever navigated a season where the world around you felt turbulent and cacophonous, yet your soul maintained a profound stillness, then you have, indeed, experienced this sacred space. Herein lies the core tension. We often crave divine protection without the commensurate commitment of presence. We desire the comforting shelter, yet we resist truly moving in and making it our permanent abode. But God is not a temporary hotel. He is an eternal home. The pivotal question, then, becomes, are you merely visiting God, or are you genuinely dwelling with him? For every subsequent promise within Psalm 91 flows directly from this foundational choice. These promises aren't activated through rote recitation of words. They are realized through steadfastly remaining in the very spiritual space where those powerful words find their genesis. Indeed, he who authentically dwells and truly lives in this secret place will discover far more than mere safety. He will encounter the welcoming presence of God himself, waiting there. Shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Traditionally, we perceive shadows as spaces to be avoided, areas where lurking dangers obscure our vision, where clarity fades into ambiguity, and where our deepest fears are often allowed to flourish. Yet, within the profound wisdom of Psalm 91, the shadow is transformed into the ultimate sanctuary, the safest place imaginable. The reason is simple, yet profound. You cannot truly be within someone's shadow unless you are intimately close to them. The shadow of the Almighty is not cast from a distant, impersonal realm. It falls only upon those who choose to walk intimately, right beside him. And this understanding changes absolutely everything, for fear thrives and magnifies in distance. When we allow ourselves to drift away from God, the whispers of darkness intensify, the unknown becomes overwhelmingly unbearable, and deceptive narratives gain traction and believability. However, when we choose to remain intimately close, even as we journey through perceived shadows, we begin to perceive a profound truth. This shadow isn't a sign that God is hiding or absent. It is, in fact, undeniable evidence of his closest possible proximity. It is the beautiful paradox of divine protection. Sometimes, the very moments and places that feel most frightening, most uncertain, when the familiar lights of assurance flicker and die, when our sense of control utterly slips away, when all certainty evaporates, these are precisely the instances when we are drawn closest to him. In such moments, we often mistakenly conclude that God has abandoned us. But in reality, we have merely stepped deeper into his protective shadow, entering a sacred realm where faith transcends mere belief and becomes our very vision, where trust is as vital and automatic as our breath. Consider the Israelites wandering in the wilderness. God's presence manifested before them as a pillar of cloud by day. This was a literal, guiding shadow, sheltering and leading them through the oppressive heat, the gnawing fear, and the profound desolation of their journey. This shadow was never an indication of his absence. Rather, it was irrefutable evidence of God's unwavering, tangible leadership. Even Jesus, as he faced the ultimate surrender of the cross, walked directly into that profound shadow. He did not flee from it. He consciously chose it, For he understood a truth we often overlook, that sometimes the deepest, most transformative intimacy with God is discovered not in the radiant sunlight of certainty, but within the hallowed shadow of complete surrender. You, perhaps, are currently navigating a dark valley, a season where the clamor of fear seems to drown out the gentle whispers of hope, where long shadows stretch ominously across your days. But listen closely to this truth. If you find yourself standing within his shadow, it unequivocally means you are standing right next to him. And this is not mere poetic imagery. It is profound, spiritual reality. God does not promise to miraculously remove every single threat from your path, but he absolutely promises to remain closer to you than any threat itself. So, when fear feels most pervasive, most suffocating, consciously draw nearer. Press deeper into that sheltering shadow and find your dwelling place there. For the shadow of the Almighty is not the absence of light. It is, in essence, the tangible nearness of God himself. And those who truly dwell within that sacred shadow are not forgotten. They are not forsaken. They are unequivocally held. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in him I will trust. At this juncture, the psalm undergoes a significant shift. It ceases to be merely a description of where to dwell and becomes a powerful, personal declaration of who God fundamentally is. And it commences with a phrase we often underestimate. I will say, his gentleness is never a sign of weakness. It is, instead, an earnest invitation to place our trust not in the temporary absence of danger, but in the steadfast, abiding presence of the deliverer himself. You may not yet perceive the hidden snare, and you might still feel the insidious presence of pestilence creeping ever nearer. But if you are covered, if you are truly hidden in him, then you are not unprotected. You are unequivocally held. Therefore, do not solely search for the visible fortress. Seek also the comforting feathers. Do not merely strive for escape. Rather, seek the sheltering embrace of his wings. For the most secure place in all the world is found precisely beneath the tender, yet omnipotent, softness of his sovereignty. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. This is a concise line, easily overlooked. Yet, buried within these potent few words lies an essential lifeline for anyone feeling adrift in a sea of confusion. For fear doesn't always manifest as a shouting, overt threat. Sometimes, it insidiously disguises itself as prudent caution. Worry often masquerades as practical wisdom. And lies, deceptive narratives are rarely outlandish. They are typically crafted with a chilling, manipulative logic. This is precisely why God equips us with a spiritual shield. And that shield is absolute truth, not fleeting emotion, not impulsive instinct, nor what intuitively feels most secure. Simply, irrefutable truth. In a world where we are incessantly bombarded by competing voices from social media, news cycles, and relentless inner critics, it becomes increasingly challenging to discern which voice truly emanates from God. The enemy, acutely aware of this vulnerability, doesn't merely attack with pain. He masterfully attacks with insidious distortion, planting corrosive suggestions. You're not safe. You're not truly loved. God isn't genuinely near. And if we fail to consciously carry truth as our impenetrable shield, those lies don't merely graze us. They begin, insidiously, to reshape the very fabric of our being. This profound importance is underscored in Ephesians 6 verse 14, which exhorts us to stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist. In ancient warfare, the belt was the foundational piece, holding every other component of armor and weaponry securely in place. Without it, the entire armor would collapse. That is precisely the function of truth. It doesn't merely protect. It acts as the essential unifying force that holds everything else together. Psalm 91 presents us with two distinct images of defensive armor, a shield and a buckler. The shield is expansive, a broad barrier designed to shelter you when arrows rain down from afar. The buckler, however, is a smaller, circular guard strapped directly to the. Therefore, Sincerely ask yourself, what truth are you actively holding on to in this very moment? If the only voices resonating in your life are those dominating your digital screens, it's no wonder you feel susceptible and vulnerable. Put the screen down. Take up the living word. Allow truth to become your unyielding shield once more. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. Psalm 91 doesn't attempt to offer a sanitized version of reality. Instead, it directly, boldly, and unapologetically names our deepest fears. Terror in the dead of night, arrows piercing the day, pestilence creeping through darkness, and destruction laying waste at high noon. This is not mere poetic embellishment. This is raw, unvarnished war language. And it is God's unequivocal way of conveying, I see precisely what you are up against. For fear is not a monolithic, one-size-fits-all experience. Some of it subtly infiltrates, quiet and formless, like the terror that stalks the night, a fear without clear shape or discernible voice, yet potent enough to jolt you awake nonetheless. It thrives in the fertile ground of imagination, in the relentless what-ifs, insidiously wrapping itself around your innermost thoughts unseen by anyone else. Then, there is the arrow that flies by day, visible, targeted, a stark diagnosis, a profound betrayal, a shocking headline. Something acutely sharp enough to inflict visible wounds even as others bear witness. Pestilence that moves in the darkness, destruction that strikes at noon, disease that creeps insidiously without warning, unforeseen chaos that shatters your sense of normalcy just when you believed everything was perfectly fine. It encompasses both the silent, creeping dangers and the sudden, shattering calamities. And God, in his profound understanding, names them all. Why does he do this? Because what remains hidden often wields an insidious power over us, whereas what is distinctly named can finally be confronted and fought. God isn't pretending that fear is an illusion. He is intentionally shining a direct, clarifying light upon it. And then, he declares, "You shall not be afraid." Not because you possess inherent strength, not because the trials won't sting or hurt, but because fear, by his decree, no longer holds dominion over your spirit. This marks a pivotal turning point within the psalm. It does not offer protection by fabricating an illusion that danger is absent. Instead, it instills profound confidence precisely in the face of danger, anchored by the unshakable reality of who is undeniably with you. And this distinction truly matters, for many Christians are often hesitant to acknowledge their fears openly. We are frequently exhorted to have faith, and so we remain silent, believing it to be a sign of spiritual fortitude. But silence is not inherently strength. Faith is not the mere absence of fear. It is the courageous, active refusal to permit fear to dictate the final outcome or decisions in our lives. And Psalm 91 grants us explicit permission to courageously name the darkness, while simultaneously placing our unwavering trust in the light. So, if you have been journeying through a night filled with unspoken, suffocating terror, or if you've been unexpectedly struck by arrows you never saw coming, hear this profound truth. God already witnessed it. He is neither shocked nor surprised. He is not retreating, nor is he ever outmatched. The psalm is not proclaiming that the night itself will simply disappear. Instead, it declares that you do not have to be held captive or ruled by its power, for the one who vigilantly watches in the dark is also the one who commands light into existence. And fear, in the face of such sovereignty, does not get the final word. In our contemporary world, we unceasingly declare a multitude of things. We parrot what the news relentlessly broadcasts. We amplify what our deepest fears whisper in the silent watches of the night. Unwittingly, we declare our exhaustion, our mounting frustration, and the direst worst-case scenarios. Slowly, insidiously, brick by brick, we construct a narrative for our lives that echoes. I am vulnerable. I am utterly alone. I am fundamentally unsafe. But the psalmist adopts a radically different approach. He articulates not merely what he feels, but rather what he knows to be true. He boldly names God as his unwavering refuge, his impenetrable hiding place, his ultimate protection, and his constant shelter. And this is no ordinary refuge. It is a fortress, a stronghold meticulously constructed and designed to withstand any assault. This is not an act of denial. It is a decisive act of direction. He isn't pretending that fear is absent. Rather, he is deliberately choosing his destination, deciding where to run for safety when fear inevitably arrives. Proverbs 18 verse 21 resoundingly declares, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." This is not a mere metaphor. It is profound scripture. Our spoken words, therefore, hold the immense power to either align with fear or boldly partner with faith. And when the psalmist declares, "In him I will trust," he is not writing from a position of serene detachment in a throne room. He is speaking directly from the battlefield, from the heart of tension, from a place where such trust demands a profound sacrifice and carries significant weight. This is precisely where many of us falter. We yearn to attain a sense of felt security before voicing our declaration of trust. Yet, in the kingdom of God, the process often works in reverse. We boldly speak truth until our souls fully remember and internalize it. So, pause and honestly ask yourself, what have I truly been saying about the Lord lately? Have I been actively proclaiming him as my refuge? Or have I inadvertently elevated my fears to the status of undeniable reality? Have I wholeheartedly declared that he is indeed enough? Or have I permitted the transient world to dictate the true source of my safety and security? The words you meticulously choose are far more than mere atmospheric noise. They are potent weapons. They are foundational bricks. They are either clear pathways leading to robust faith or insidious, eroding cracks in your very foundation. Therefore, speak it. Say it aloud, even if your voice trembles with uncertainty. Declare, "He is my refuge. He is my fortress, and in him I will trust. Surely he shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge." This is precisely where Psalm 91 offers a surprising, tender imagery. We might naturally expect divine protection to manifest as overwhelming strength, impenetrable shields, formidable armies, towering walls. Yet, here, it takes the form of gentle feathers. Let's first consider the snare, an insidious, often invisible trap meticulously set by a cunning hunter. It doesn't announce its presence with loud warnings or obvious displays. Instead, it is subtle, strategic, and expertly designed to ensnare the unaware. This, strikingly, mirrors the very nature of spiritual danger. It doesn't always approach with the ferocious roar of a lion. Sometimes, it arrives disguised as an innocent invitation, a subtle, almost imperceptible drift, or a seemingly minor compromise that, before you realize it, leaves you hopelessly entangled. And yet, with unwavering conviction, the psalmist declares, "Surely, not perhaps, not hopefully, but surely God will deliver." This deliverance, however, doesn't always involve the miraculous removal of the trap itself. Sometimes, he grants you the discerning vision to spot it just in time. Other times, he compassionately walks with you through the entanglement, gently yet powerfully untangling you from what was specifically designed for your destruction. Then, seamlessly, the imagery shifts from the harsh realities of snares and sickness to the tender comfort of feathers and wings. What kind of God possesses such incredible duality, delivering with formidable power, then enveloping with such tender softness? Our God, uniquely, embodies both. This highlights the beautiful, yet profound, tension inherent in divine protection. He is simultaneously the fierce warrior and the gentle mother, the impenetrable shield and the soft shelter, the unwavering defender and the tender comforter. The symbolism of feathers here resonates with a far deeper, more intimate truth. These aren't random, they are profoundly personal. In Deuteronomy 32, God himself is depicted as an eagle rousing its nest, carefully covering its young with its mighty wings. This evocative image speaks volumes of both profound vulnerability and cherished intimacy. To seek refuge beneath his wings is to actively surrender your own defenses, to declare with humble honesty, "I trust you more profoundly than I trust myself." And let us be honest, sometimes this act of surrender is far more challenging than any battle we might fight. Our natural inclination is to attempt to fix, meticulously plan, or frantically escape our troubles. But genuine divine protection often manifests as a profound stillness, as the humbling act of hiding beneath wings we cannot control, as waiting in unwavering faith while the fiercest storm rages and howls all around us. And here is a vital truth. God's protection doesn't always feel overtly powerful. Sometimes it manifests as subtly hidden, profoundly quiet, almost fragile. Yet, therein lies its exquisite beauty. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. This verse doesn't merely whisper comfort. It unleashes a defiant roar in the very face of disaster. For Psalm 91 never promises an untouched life, free from all hardship. It promises, rather, an unshaken, resilient soul. The imagery depicted here is profoundly intense. Thousands falling, widespread collapse engulfing everything around. It speaks of the kind of loss that can utterly shatter the strongest spirits, the sort of devastation that can cause even the most devout to question if their faith truly suffices. Yet, right there, in the very epicenter of this chaos, the promise stands firm. You're still standing. This is not a depiction of avoidance. It is a powerful scene of sheer survival. And it compels us to grapple with a truth many of us are hesitant to voice aloud. What happens when our faith doesn't miraculously halt the storm? What occurs when those dearest to us are struck by tribulation? When loved ones endure suffering? When fervent prayers appear to go unanswered? When destruction is undeniably real? That is precisely when Psalm 91 transcends mere words and becomes a living, breathing testament. For this verse doesn't promise you an exemption from witnessing the battle. It assures you that you will indeed witness it, yet you will not be destroyed by it. But let's be unequivocally clear, this is not a prosperity gospel. It is not a magical talisman designed to ward off all pain. It is, rather, a divine demarcation drawn by God himself, proclaiming, "You may witness collapse, but I have specifically marked your soul for preservation." This is spiritual warfare. This is an eternal perspective. This is God definitively stating, "You may lose sleep. You may lose comfort, but you will not lose me." And when the dust settles, when the clamor recedes, when 10,000 have indeed fallen, those who have authentically dwelled in the secret place will still be standing, not by mere chance or luck, but because they were profoundly, divinely held. There arrives a profound moment in every believer's journey when the sheer fact of survival becomes a powerful, living testimony. You shouldn't have made it through that debilitating depression. You shouldn't have walked away from that devastating trauma. You shouldn't have still believed after all you witnessed. Yet, here you are, miraculously standing. And heaven itself celebrates not only the undeniable miracle of healing, but equally, the profound miracle of enduring steadfastly. Because you did not fall when the world around you crumbled. You stayed. You remained. You dwelled faithfully in the shadow. And the God who meticulously marks the fall of every sparrow had also marked you for preservation. So, the next time the world feels as though it's utterly disintegrating, do not cast your gaze downward in despairing fear. Instead, lift your gaze and remember this profound truth. You are indeed surrounded by collapse, but you are not, and will not be, consumed by it. For the God who stands sovereign above 10,000 graves is the very same God standing intimately, faithfully next to you. For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. While most believers are familiar with this beautiful verse, fewer truly grasp It signifies a non-negotiable command, a specific assignment, a divine order issued from the highest authority. These are not mere decorative cherubs with rosy cheeks, idly floating on clouds. They are messengers of fire, formidable warriors of light, devoted servants of the Most High, strategically dispatched into every seen and unseen corner of your existence. Hebrews 1 verse 14 confirms this, asking, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to serve those who will inherit salvation?" They do not act on their own volition, nor do they cater to our personal preferences. They diligently carry out God's sovereign will, and unequivocally, His will includes meticulously keeping you. Ponder this profound truth. There have been countless moments in your life where you should have tripped, yet miraculously didn't. Where a catastrophic accident almost unfolded, where critical timing shifted by mere seconds, averting disaster. You might have dismissed it as sheer coincidence. Heaven recognized it as divine coverage. This promise doesn't imply you'll never encounter pain, nor does it guarantee you'll never bleed. But it absolutely affirms that you are never, ever truly unguarded. Even amidst the deepest silence, that is the undeniable reality of angelic intervention. That is mercy, beautifully and tangibly in motion. But let there be no mistake. Angels are not to be mistaken for your saviors. They are not to be worshipped or actively summoned. They are not magical guardians beholden to your every whim or command. They are powerful agents of God's ultimate sovereignty. And when He issues the command to go, they go, without hesitation. So, if you find yourself weary, if you are exhausted from fighting unseen battles, remember this profound truth. You are never truly alone on this journey. The very heavens accompany you, and in moments when your strength inevitably wanes, when your voice grows faint, or your knees begin to tremble, know that unseen hands are always there, steadfastly holding you aloft. This unwavering support is rooted in a profound truth. The one who commands legions of angels has already issued the divine decree for their guardianship over you. This divine mandate is echoed powerfully in Psalm 91 verse 13. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent underfoot. This particular verse marks a dramatic shift in the Psalm's narrative. Up to this point, the text primarily describes God's actions on our behalf, His provision of shelter, His acts of deliverance, His protective covering, and the ministry of His angels. But abruptly, the focus shifts to you, the individual, as the active participant. You are no longer merely hiding or surviving. You are treading. This pivotal change underscores a profound message about authority, a divine, God-given authority, empowered by the Spirit and unequivocally backed by heaven itself. Yet, let's take a moment to acknowledge a common reality. Most believers, despite these promises, often don't feel powerful. Instead, we frequently feel diminished, weary, and outnumbered. Fear, far from merely knocking politely, often barges in uninvited, settling comfortably in our hearts. It is precisely in such moments of vulnerability that Psalm 91 powerfully intervenes, declaring with resolute certainty, "You shall tread, not you might, nor perhaps someday." The affirmation is unequivocal. You shall. The lion and the cobra in this verse symbolize two distinct, yet equally dangerous categories of threats. The lion embodies the overt, aggressive, and overwhelming challenges, the sudden, ferocious trials that strike swiftly and forcefully. In contrast, the cobra represents the silent, subtle, and deceptive dangers, the insidious temptations or pervasive lies that creep in unnoticed, slowly poisoning our spirit. Regardless of whether the threat roars fiercely or hisses cunningly, God declares that you have been granted the ultimate authority to walk right over it. This isn't a mere concept of self-help, nor is it dependent on cultivating your inner strength or adopting a positive mindset. This authority is profoundly rooted in the very words of Jesus Christ Himself. In Luke 10 verse 19, He declares, "Behold, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy. Jesus never promised a life devoid of darkness or challenges. Instead, he assured us that we would possess the power and authority not to bow down to it. Crucially, this profound authority doesn't originate from individual might or assertive declarations. It springs solely from a deep, abiding relationship with God, from dwelling in His presence, from continually trusting in Him, and from faithfully abiding in His truth. Spiritual authority is not born from volume or outward show. Rather, it emerges from intimate proximity to the divine. And here lies a sobering truth. Far too many believers live a life beneath the immense authority they have been freely given. We find ourselves negotiating with fear instead of decisively treading upon it. We tolerate insidious lies that were unequivocally meant to be crushed underfoot. We often forget that our very feet were designed not merely for survival, but for walking in triumphant victory. So, let me pose a direct question to you. What lies have you unconsciously permitted to take root in your life, simply because you forgot the profound truth of who you are in Christ? What subtle serpent has slithered into your domain and made itself disturbingly at home? It is time, now, to reclaim this powerful truth and remember that you have been divinely called to tread. You are not required to feel brave in every moment. You simply need to step forward and walk in the authority that is already rightfully yours. The ground beneath your feet is not neutral territory. It is sacred, promised ground. And every conscious choice you make, choosing truth over deception, faith over crippling fear, obedience over fleeting comfort, becomes an act of trampling something that once held you captive or terrified you. For truly, when you abide in the shadow of the Almighty, you do not merely survive, you unequivocally overcome. Because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Up until this pivotal moment, Psalm 91 has primarily been a human voice speaking about God, recounting His attributes and deeds. But now, in these verses, God Himself steps forward and speaks. It is no longer merely the psalmist declaring profound truths. It is the Lord Himself, personally entering the narrative. The entire tone shifts, the voice becomes intimately personal, and the promises intensify dramatically. And the singular, powerful reason behind this divine engagement is encapsulated in one simple yet profound phrase: because He has set His love upon me. It is not because one was perfect, or because another experienced no fear, or because anyone earned it. Rather, it is because love, a genuine, heartfelt affection, has anchored their very heart to God. This, then, is the true bedrock of divine protection, not flawless performance or adherence to every rule, but genuine, heartfelt affection. God does not declare, because He obeyed every law. He simply states, because He loved me. This particular section marks the Psalm's profound emotional and spiritual climax. For here, God isn't merely offering a transactional promise of safety. He is extending an invitation to deep, personal relationship. Deliverance, therefore, is not a cold exchange. It is a warm, immediate response to genuine love. Honor is not an earned reward, but the natural fruit of intimacy. And true satisfaction doesn't stem from an abundance of worldly blessings. It flows from the profound experience of seeing and embracing His salvation. That powerful word, salvation, transcends mere rescue. In its Hebrew origin, it is Yeshua, the very root of the name Jesus. Thus, the ultimate, deepest fulfillment of this psalm is not discovered in a life untouched by pain, but rather in the person of a Savior who willingly stepped into the heart of our suffering and responded with unwavering love. I will answer him. What an astonishing, steadfast promise. Not crushing silence, not dismissive indifference, but a definitive answer. We are not left to simply call out into the darkness and vaguely hope for a reply. We call, and God Himself responds. And He promises further, I will be with him in trouble. Notice the crucial preposition, in trouble, not standing safely around it, nor hovering serenely above it, but intimately present in the midst of it. The profound reward for our love is not a guarantee of a life untouched by suffering. Instead, it is the assurance of a life where suffering is never confronted alone. This is precisely the place where fear ultimately loses its power and dies. Not because the challenging circumstances magically disappear, but because the resonant voice of God becomes undeniably louder and more authoritative than any voice of fear. So, if you have ever questioned whether your love truly matters to the Creator, if you have ever felt too insignificant or too small to be noticed, then this is your unequivocal answer. Yes, He sees you. Yes, He answers your call. Yes, He delivers you. Because you loved Him, He speaks. And within that divine, resonant voice, we finally discover the very thing our hearts have yearned for since the first shadow ever fell across the world. We find the one who has, in fact, never left. And so, we now circle back to our starting point. He who dwells in the secret place. After meditating on all these magnificent promises, after visualizing all the rich imagery of protective feathers and unbreachable fortresses, vigilant angels and deflected arrows, one singular truth rises supreme above them all. Psalm 91 is not, fundamentally, a guarantee of an effortlessly easy life. Rather, it is a profound revelation of a soul divinely guarded and secured. That is precisely where Psalm 91 truly comes alive and resides. It lives in the hushed hospital room where someone, amidst profound tears, finds the strength to sing a hymn of hope. It lives in the quiet, solitary home of a widow, faithfully clinging to God's promises in His Word. It lives in the heart of a man driving headlong into a future filled with uncertainty, yet resolutely refusing to surrender the wheel to fear. And powerfully, it lives within you right now. If your faith feels profoundly tired, if your hope seems to be flickering precariously, if you've been searching for God's presence amidst the deepest shadows, understand this: you are not disqualified. In fact, you are exactly the person for whom this profound psalm was penned. So, let me ask you directly, what specific verse from Psalm 91 resonates most profoundly with your spirit right at this moment? Please share it in the comments below. Share the enduring promise that has been your anchor and held you steady. And if you know someone who is currently navigating through paralyzing fear, someone who desperately needs to hear that they are not forgotten and utterly alone, consider sending them this message. Let them understand that the shadow is never, ever the ultimate end of their story. The enemy constantly seeks to deceive you, whispering lies that fear will ultimately triumph, that silence equates to absence, and that if you cannot feel God, He must be impossibly distant. But the truth, thankfully, is infinitely more powerful and liberating. The very presence of a shadow undeniably proves that a light source is near. So, resolve to stay intimately close to your shepherd. Continue dwelling faithfully in that secret place of His presence. Speak His immutable promises out loud, even if your voice trembles with uncertainty. And never, ever forget these profound truths. You are not alone in the refining fire. You are not hopelessly lost in the deepest night. You are not utterly abandoned in the fiercest storm. You are meticulously hidden. You are thoroughly covered. You are profoundly loved. And the one who originally called you to dwell in His secret place has never, for a single moment, ceased watching over you.